Hey, I'm Silas Lesnick with ComingSoon.net. I am here to talk with director Peyton Reed about the December 8th release of Ant-Man on Blu-ray. But first, I'm going to have a cup of coffee and hopefully find an antidote to these PIM particles. How tricky is it as the Marvel Universe expands, it's expanding in all directions, and we're learning about the past as well as the present.
Yeah.
How tricky is it to carve out space for yourself in the history of the universe?
And that was the thing I liked about Ant-Man, is it carved out its own space. You know, it's in Northern California, which you hadn't really explored in the Marvel Universe, and you know, Hank Pym has sort of intentionally isolated himself because he's been betrayed and he's taken his formula and hidden it. So it's this whole other weird corner of the world that eventually is going to intersect with the larger world, and that was really appealing because I wanted a movie that worked if you'd never seen any of the other Marvel movies, that just worked as a story of a normal guy who gets caught up in these larger-than-life situations. But it is interesting because, yeah, you're right, it's expanding, you know, into space, and it's expanding now into sort of this microverse, you know, and it literally is going in all different directions.
The job of a production designer is to create the world that the film takes place in. And obviously I work closely with the director, Peyton Reed, and our producers, Brad Winderbaum and Marvel, and our cinematographer. If that's the job of the production designer, you know, I definitely think of the film not as a set or a series of sets. I think of it as a comprehensive experience for the audience and for our characters to kind of go through from first frame to last frame. And I work closely with our visual effects supervisor, Jake Morrison. And you know, it takes a big group of people to kind of like get everything in order and connected, but it starts with like paving the road that production walks down and the world that the film takes place in.
It sort of goes back to the Tales to Astonish origins, where it's sort of like a weird science comic.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a really strong science fiction element to it, and kind of gets back to that idea of just, you know, these old school super scientists who are creating, you know it's a serum, you know, the PIM particle. And that was really fun too, and I think something that we all embraced is that science of it, and the suit and the whole way it works, the fact that there's a history to it. It's maybe a little more, the technology is amazing, but it feels like a relic from another era, you know, of hero, and that was fun too, to kind of take the Hank Pym character, who's so important in the comics realm, and introduce him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
How does something, when it comes to sort of licensed properties like Thomas the Tank Engine, is that trial and error, finding exactly what works?
That is one time. Occasionally on a film, I have to be like, I'm not a lawyer. Like, this is so beyond my jurisdiction. But no, there's a lot of, you know, relationships and business affairs, and films in theory are written with certain intentions in mind and relationships in mind. But no, it wasn't a slam dunk with Thomas the Train. Like, I know that when that was written, there was immediate kind of outreach on both ends and conversations about making that a reality. And it was great that the Thomas the Train became a reality, as opposed to Tommy the Train, or you know Sanford the Train, you know, some fictitious version of it. And I think that just connects the audience to the film in a way that is like a homespun way, because you know, I know my kids, you know, had piles of Thomas the Trains when they were growing up.
There's a really nice sort of like Easter eggs throughout, and I'm curious if there's anything that people haven't seen yet that they should be on the lookout for on the Blu-ray.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, again, I look forward to people single framing through the quantum realm to see what they can parse out, and you know, that there may be some things to see in there. And then, you know, there's some weird little things in the first time that Hank Pym takes Scott into his secure room. You know, there's this little anthill that's in this device, and we designed that directly from a Jack Kirby panel from one of the Tales to Astonish issues early on. So there are little things like that that the Marvel fanatics, I think, will enjoy.
At D23, we got to see some footage of Paul Rudd in Civil War. Do you sit down with the Russos and discuss the trajectory, or is it you just sort of pass it off and trust that when it comes back to you, Ant-Man will be in good condition?
Well, you know, the Russos and Marcus and McFeely, who wrote Civil War, they came into the cutting room when we were editing, and I showed them a bunch of scenes from Ant-Man. I wanted them to get a feel for the tone of our movie, and particularly how Paul was playing Scott Lang, and also the Michael Douglas of it all, the idea of sort of like what Hank Pym's influence on Scott Lang would be. And I think they found it really useful in writing his character for Civil War. And yeah, the footage you've seen it from the movie is fantastic, and that's really, I think, only sort of the tip of the iceberg. But I was pleased, but I confess there was a little bit of professional jealousy where it's like, Paul, wait, where are you going, man? You're going off with those guys? We had a thing going. But it's great. I think what's unique about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So what's happening with Ant-Man and the Wasp? Are you gearing up for that already, or is it still some time?
We're gearing up. We have some time. We're gearing up probably at the beginning of the year in terms of really sitting down and starting to crack the story. And we have tons of notes and ideas and things we set up in the first movie. But we'll really start writing in January in earnest.
I want to know about that tip.
Okay, I ran into my cousin who told me that this dope Blu-ray was coming out. It's for this movie about a guy who shrinks to the size of an ant.
Look at your shoulder.
That's witchcraft.
Crazy stupid small. Not only that, but he can talk to ants. He knows their feelings. He's like Dr. Phil, but for ants.
That's a good boy.
That dude's so hot right now, even the Avengers are looking for him.
I'm looking for a guy that shrinks.
Luis.
Okay, sorry. I just get excited and stuff.
This Blu-ray has everything. You want some deleted scenes?
Nice.
Yeah, right?
Well, you want a little gag reel? A behind-the-scene look at how they made the shrunken scenes?
For real? Yeah.
Bro, it even has the making of how Ant-Man's super fly, super handsome crew of delightful gentlemen helped to pull off the perfect heist. Look at that smile.
It's the wrong details. It's the wrong. It has nothing to do with the story. Go.
I told my cousin to call me when it comes out because I want to get a copy. You know what I'm saying?
You really should write poetry.
Marvel's Ant-Man, coming to digital and Blu-ray.